Supreme Court stuff because our Chief Justice can't actually hang around here very much. Are there any objections just to skipping straight to that, going back to the rules in a second? Okay. So, I didn't get any questions for Janice from anybody, so I assume there are no questions for Janice.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, this kind of goes back to what I asked before about the, is there a statute of limitations? You sort of answered the question, is there a deadline? What I intend by that question is, can somebody raise an election issue with the Supreme Court for an election, say for a special election?
Yeah, elections, if you can raise it for special elections as long as it's provided it's part of under the election code, so that can be done. But again, the only restriction the Supreme Court has is their timing. Once they refuse to take any cases because of their deadline with finals, they don't take anything.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood. What I mean is, an election that happened in September of this year, several months ago, once the Supreme Court language was in place, the candidates for that election file something with the Supreme Court.
You're saying like next semester?
No, like from an election that happened 5 months ago, can someone say, hey, I want to contest my election, I want to take it to the Supreme Court?
Like today?
Yeah, today,
Or 5 months ago?
a few days ago.
I would say I think it depends what the election code ultimately says, because the elections code is what's going to funnel into it, and you would have to go through that process. And if the elections code is going to be retroactive to handle those appeals, then yes, otherwise no. So does that make sense? So if the elections code is not allowing for it to be backdated and handle matters that already occurred, then if it's an elections matter, then it's going to have to go through the same process that's being established, which is going through an election, going to the elections director, and the elections director to the elections commission, and from the commission to the board. That is the process in terms of handling elections.
So the problem is the election code is not clear on it.
Okay.
So
That's really not any of their concerns, how the elections code is
Well,
written.
no, that was a good answer. It sounds like we could ask for an interpretation of the election code prior to.
Okay.
It's also recommended, as I stated the last meeting, that utilize the fact that you have 2 law school reps, and that we did help and encourage, and we do have a list of student lawyers who are more than open to assist in helping interpret those documents to help do that before you make your document form. That is what ACUA does, and that's what they do with their elections commission and their elections code, and I find that to be most effective.
Thank you.
All right. So are there any other questions for Janice?
Or Russ.
Or Russ? Sorry, Russ. Okay. So there are no other questions about this. So everyone understands. Is there any comment on the Supreme Court amendment? Now, basically, as far as I can understand it, none of the amendments that we've put forward make any sense unless all of them are put forward together. So I would like us to go ahead and pass this Article 8 for the Elections Code, this Article 1 for the Elections Code, and adding Article 5 for the Constitution all at once, because they don't really make sense unless they're all together all at once. Does that make sense to everybody? Does anyone object to that? Okay. So I move that we amend the Constitution and Elections Code according to these amendments that were sent out last week. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, can I get ayes, please? So, okay. So, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 19 ayes. Any nays? Any abstention? Okay, that's 7 abstentions, 8, 9 abstentions. So, 9 abstentions. I have to do the math to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that's passed. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for all of your work. We appreciate that you guys have been helping us this entire time. We hope not pass you as well.
And I think you guys will do the rules as well that we proposed.
Yes. Awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
So just what Janice alluded to there, we just want to go ahead and say, I'll need that in a row, but we're going to go ahead and, I forgot the word, we're going to all vote aye on the rules that they put forward and say we accept them as Supreme Court has sent out. These are again things we sent out last week, so I move that we ratify the rules the Supreme Court has set forward. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, can I get ayes, please? 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Are you voting?
No,
Aye.
no.
14 ayes. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay.
1,
So,
2, 3. Wait,
rules-
how many abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I have to actually check the total enrollment. Okay, so the rolls have passed. I'm going to do the math at the end of the meeting. We'll figure out if the Supreme Court is part of us or not. So, either way, we can now move on from this and no longer talk about it. Okay, so let's go back to approvals. We have a new College of Science alternate and a new CAPLA alternate, I hope, in the room. So this is Matt Humphreys, who's going to be, wants to be alternate for College of Science to help replace Brandon. And then there was
Josh can't make our meetings.
Josh can't make meetings. So, okay, so Matt has submitted the documentation, the signatures, and statement of why he wants to be an alternate. All we really have to do is say, welcome, Matt. So, can I get someone make a motion?
I move.
Okay, so I got second, someone?
Second.
Second, someone. All right. Placard desk, please. Welcoming Matt as alternate for science. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 18, 24, 25. Welcome. Any nays? Just any abstention? 2 abstention. 3 abstention. All right. Welcome, Matt. Matt, you're now the College of Science rep. By the end of the meeting, I'll get you an oath and swear you in and everything appropriately. Okay. So Appropriations Board POD funding recommendation. Jim.
Yeah, so as I sent out to the listserv, we just had a committee approved the Department of German POD applications for $1,500, and it was what the council approved
Okay.
based on the committee's recommendation.
All right. So that comes second from committee. Does anyone have anything to say about this? Okay. Can I get ayes? 24. Any nays?
Question once we're finished.
Sorry. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay. 3. Okay.
I
Go
just
on.
want a point of clarification. I reviewed this as part of the commission. We reviewed this and we had revisions and it was resubmitted and it was fine. But just for logistics for future, Lydia, your name is on it. If we have applications just for future reference, do we have to abstain from those votes when they come to the floor? Like obviously it passed. I have no reservations. I voted to approve it. I'm just saying, let's say theoretically I filed a POD application, then would I have to abstain from that vote?
As far as I'm concerned, whether you're abstaining from those votes is entirely up to your own ethical conscience. So my strong suggestion is to abstain from stuff with your name on it, but you can't, like, it's, the travel grants don't work that way, so I'm not, that's what I'm saying. Anybody have anyone object to that understanding? Okay, cool. January 23rd meeting, they just got sent out with a couple changes like an hour or 2 ago.
Yeah, I apologize. There were some last minute suggestions.
Do you,
I moved to table those minutes until the attendance is properly presented.
okay. I have a move to table. Your second?
Second.
Second? Okay, so tabled until the attendance is amended. So, done. Janice. Dr. Trevino, are you still in there? Would you like to go ahead and start now, or you? Okay. This is Dr. Trevino. He is the something complicated title that I don't actually know, I'm sorry. But for, I'll just let you introduce you because I'm sure what I like.
I'm the Vice Provost for Inclusive Excellence, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come in and talk about the Inclusive Excellence statement, or the draft of the Inclusive Excellence statement. This is the second time that I've actually addressed the school committee. Some of you recall when I came in, I was brand new, and I had systemic approach to campus diversity. One way to explain it is to think about these institutional isms that we have, racism, sexism, heterosexism, and some of the other isms that actually impact our community is this idea that they are embedded into the fabric of the institution, not because we want to, it's not conscious, but it's because of historical reasons, in-group favoritism, and other kinds of things or factors. The antidote to institutional isms really is inclusive excellence. Let's embed diversity and inclusiveness throughout the institution. So I've been working since I last saw you trying to actually get all the schools to create diversity committees. There's an assessment that actually they have to go through and tell me where is it that they're already embedding diversity and inclusiveness, because we're not starting at point zero. There's a lot of work that's already been done on this campus that can be conceptualized as inclusive excellence. Tell me where you're not, and then develop a diversity plan that actually will get the schools to start working on these issues in a very systematic way. Part of that is also our university documents. So for example, the Never Settle plan, we're almost done with actually embedding inclusive excellence throughout that document, but that actually governs what we do on this campus. One of the things that I have told this community is that we do not have what on most campuses is called a diversity statement, something that actually talks about our values. In this case, we're calling it an inclusive excellence statement. And I'm going around to lots of governing groups, this is one, and I'm trying to get support for the statement so that once we have as many governing groups as possible saying these are our values, then it will go to the president and get them to actually do the final approval, and then we'll put it up on our web. And then these will be our values. It is very, very important that we have that, because right now we don't have a document that if we have some sort of incident on campus or other kinds of things that are happening around the university, we don't have anything to refer to and say, these are our values, that's acceptable or that's not acceptable. So this is a very important document, and again, it's the process of embedding it into everything that we do. So I'm here to present the draft. It took 3 meetings to get it out of both the budget committee and the provost council, but it finally made it out. And I had hoped to come and see this group much earlier, but that didn't take place. And it's been vetted. It started out as a 1-page document. It's now at a half-page. I like it. I like the changes that were made. I'm here to present it to you for feedback, and then try to get some endorsements so that I can go to the student government. The Dean's Council still hasn't seen it, and other boards or groups or councils on this campus that actually are part of our governing structure. So here it is, and I'm open for feedback and any kinds of comments that you have or changes that.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any feedback? Danielle?
Yeah, I think that this is a really great start. I would like to see some more specific items in terms of what that actually means for students, right? Like, this is really broad, which is a good thing because it's basically saying everybody's welcome, and we strive to make everybody feel incorporated in the university as a part of the university. But it would be, I think, nice to maybe have some examples of what that is, and maybe that can be an addendum. Maybe that's not necessary for this specifically, but I think that would go farther than just saying, here's, we care about diversity, but then what is that?
Right. This is actually much more of a vision sort of statement. The practice itself is the vision statement for inclusive excellence, which I'm still working. I'm almost done with that. But even that also says what we're going to do, but that's really not the practice. The practice are all the diversity committees that we created and the assessment that they're going through and the diversity plans that they're sort of putting together. And undergraduates and graduate students and many different communities are actually embedded into that document so that the diversity committees have to think about these issues. And because that's one of the biggest problems that we face in American higher education, this idea that we don't have to think about it, depending on what group you actually belong to. So that the different schools are having to think about a lot of stuff that they hadn't thought about. Or in fact, that's the feedback that I'm getting from some faculty. Man, there's a lot of stuff in there that I had never thought about. Well, diversity, think about it, right? So we're gonna try to get them to think about students in particular, because that's what the whole enterprise is really about. And so all of this work is actually the practice piece, the infrastructure that I talked about, not this, as well as the diversity task force, looking at the demands that the students actually made, which have already also been incorporated into the assessment piece I'm talking about. And the diversity coordinating council is also doing that particular piece.
Just one more follow-up, it might be nice too to include, that part of this fits within our mission as a public land grant as well.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Jerry's hands up.
Kind of just respond to what you were saying, Danielle. These are kind of hard to do on this level because it's an entire university. And I know my college has its own diversity inclusive statement, the College of Medicine, and many of the other colleges already have like their own individualized one that's a lot more specific to their student population. So I definitely think this is a great layer that I'm going forward would be great. But if we can't get too specific sometimes with things in this, I think you would agree with, because if we try to get too nitpicky, it has to apply to every college, and we don't want to overlap with other people.
Yeah, this statement, when it was a one-pager, was a lot more specific, because I
Yeah.
wanted to actually recognize a lot of different groups. But through the vetting process, all of that was eliminated, and looking at this, I agree that you don't want to be too broad, but you don't want to be specific either, so, it's a challenge.
Thank you.
You don't want to be doing my work. I gotta go meet with a lot of other groups, actually.
Anybody else? I have a piece of feedback actually. One thing I do notice is that we don't anywhere say what our institution does, like as an institution, what it, like defining what a university is meant to be doing, and how our inclusive excellence is allowing us to do that. Is it the seeking of knowledge? Is it the protection of information? What is it that what is it that all these diverse backgrounds are doing? Talking about it as an institution, but not what the institution is per se.
Okay, are you talking about the benefits of diversity? Are we talking about how do we achieve that?
I'm talking about what you don't actually define what a university is. And so we aren't just a community of diverse people. We are a community dedicated to something
The
specific.
students are learning and those
Yes,
kinds of
those sorts of things,
Also,
and
we'd
so-
like to
Yeah.
comment about the land grants
Great.
Okay.
institution.
So
Okay, that's good.
something along those lines would be good.
Okay.
Is there any further feedback? Okay. As someone who's been working on this sort of thing since I've been here, like I'm for endorsing this at a more final stage maybe. You say draft. Is it, these people endorse this as written?
Yeah, that doesn't mean they can't change. All it means is that these folks have allowed me to get out of their group and bring it to other groups in order for vetting.
That makes sense. So, I would move that we endorse this,
Provision.
with revision, and when you get the final, come back and show it to us and we
Okay.
finalize it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Provisional endorsement.
Provisional endorsement for this, pending any future changes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Great. That would help me a lot.
Okay, so I move. Is there any second? Second. Can I get ayes? Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, 26 ayes. Excellent. Any nays? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Dr. Camillo.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll run it through a whole bunch of other groups and then I'll come back and give you the one. I'm probably gonna say, we love diversity.
Yes.
Yeah, right. By that time.
Thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so, awesome. All right, on to new business. The marketing, DGS, and grad coordinator, is this what you wanted to talk about? This thing? Okay.
So we had a fundraising meeting last week. I met with Janelle, Sarah, Charlotte, and we talked about fundraising. And Kevin happened to stop by at the meeting, and he told me that last year there was a breakfast for DGS and program coordinators where they basically were were told about the travel grants program and the REAP program, and they had the opportunity to ask questions, and basically they could take that information back to their constituents. And he said that over 150 DGSs and program coordinators showed up to this meeting. I can't remember what he said the exact cost was last year. I think it was between $600 and $800. We should be able to pay for that this year, and I thought that that would be a really great way, because some of the things that I've heard in terms of feedback for marketing is that we need to do a better job of marketing these programs internally. So I thought that's one way that we can start. Is this is institutional memory, right? These people are in positions for a long time usually. So it's helpful to keep refreshing them and saying, hey, remember we have this money for your students. You should send them to us so we can use all this money that we get from SSFAB, right? So what I wanted to do tonight before I started moving forward and planning this with Kevin was just to bring it to the council. I'm going to try to keep it as cheap as possible. As you see, there's about $1,400 left in the marketing budget for the year. So about $600 or $700 from that, I think would really go a long way in helping us market these programs and encouraging the growth that we want to see every year. So I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention before I went forward, and if anybody has any negatives on that, then please feel free to go ahead and share it.
Just to clarify, that remaining money is unallocated at this time?
Correct. There's actually $50 of that is allocated. We're going to be buying some items at the bookstore to include with the survey as a giveaway, as an incentive, so people will hopefully participate. But besides that, the rest of that's unallocated, and I'm going to be working to decide what to do with the rest of that. Some of that might include using it for Facebook posts, but we're going to do that brunch. I think that's a good idea. If you have any other ideas about marketing, please feel free to share them with me at any time.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. I had a more general question about budgeting and things.
Okay. It might not be the moment for it. What is it?
It's just really quick.
Okay.
Where might we find general budget information?
You should ask the treasurer.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just for marketing expenses, and I actually didn't spend, the only thing that I've approved is the last item.
Anything else? Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. You did a great job.
If we get to the thing with Jessie, can we just hold off on that?
Yes.
'Cause
So
we
the,
wanna-
the thing with this, we'll just wait till she gets here because
Great, thank
she's
you.
got a real job. Okay. Did you do a CP survey? So Danielle, this is probably you again, but
you can speak on it.
Yeah, I was about to send out the survey actually to you. Can we
Okay.
come back to this? So
Sure.
I'll just send it out to everyone, and then you guys can take a look into what you think.
okay.
And then approve it.
Okay. So then the closed POD applications.
Is that me?
Sure.
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay, so hopefully you guys all looked at the information Jim sent out last meeting that basically showed that last year, although we allocated a large number of our club and POD SSF money, a lot of it was not actually spent, which indicates that the students who requested it actually didn't need it. The other thing more generally is every year we have trouble trying to allocate all of our SSFAB money for club and POD, and in the past 2 years, we've been informed that GPSC is requesting too large a fraction of the SSFAB pot of money, which is jeopardizing our applications for travel grants, research and project grants, the things that people actually do fully utilize, and the things that people know us better for. So we've been told, this is obviously not a promise or a guarantee of anything, but we have been told that if we dropped some part or all of our club and POD applications, we would likely receive more money for travel grants and research and project grants. And since historically we've been better at allocating that money, I think this is something we should seriously consider doing. We would pretty much have to decide at this meeting because I think SSFAB decisions are going to be made within the next couple of weeks, and so we'll no longer be able to withdraw those applications. So Danielle can probably weigh on this more. I don't think Nick is here.
Storm is the other person.
Yeah, Storm can probably weigh on this. So I don't know if you two want to because you're actively on the committee, but if you do feel comfortable, then absolutely please jump in.
Okay. So it's gonna be Jim and then Sloan.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the materials that I've provided everybody make it pretty clear that the reason people didn't spend the money was because, it's not because they didn't need it, it's because they didn't know they had to spend it before the deadline. And we've changed our website now to solve that problem. And Megan has, can you talk a little bit about what you put in place on that, Megan, to solve that problem in the future?
Well, I mean, now that we have me and mostly Carol, I mean, she can update to make sure folks use their funding, but, yeah, I mean, I don't think that we use enough money to warrant continuing SSF. I think it can go to ASUA Club, and that can be another conversation. But, for Jim's specific question, Carol would be willing to update and make sure that club and pod applicants, understand that there is a deadline and that they would need to use their money prior to that. So I'll leave it
So
there.
that would presumably solve the problem of people not spending the money that we allocate to them. And the feedback I've gotten from clubs so far is that clubs want club funding. And our grad student clubs would not be happy with us taking away their club funding. So, I would certainly think we need to get a little more feedback from our constituents on this. Before, GPSC has been doing club funding for years and years. It's one of our core things. So I just think we should get more feedback from our constituents before we do this.
Okay, so we Storm, Danielle, me, and then Sammy Jim. Anybody? Okay. Megan, can you go quickly?
No,
Megan after your question. Okay, Storm.
So yeah, I echo Jasmine's sentiment. I can't find my statistics. If I do while I'm talking, I'll share them with you. But we are not spending as much as we're requesting, and that is a problem. I think Megan, I'm not sure if I believe it was to you. I sent an email where I said I don't necessarily agree with the. I can say that it was not my personal experience as a recipient of initial club funding that you are not aware of the deadline. I don't know if that's just some clubs aren't paying attention. When I requested funds for a club that I lead when I was not a GPSC member, I was explicitly told by a woman, I believe Cindy Kinsey in accounting upstairs, that I had a certain date I had to spend it by, and obviously when it's in your best interest, you have this money, you need to spend it. So I don't necessarily know why clubs aren't spending what they request. I think some of it is, obviously when people apply, it is in their best interest to overstate what they need, and then because they think they're going to give us, they don't know how our process works, and they might think, oh, they have a quota that they're not going to give us 100%, they'll give us 80. So let's ask for 20% more than we need. So I think that happens. I think it's why we have this over allocation. I think we do need to do, I guess, evidently a better job communicating. I don't think it's a good idea for us to at least withdraw the application this year, simply because ASUA hasn't kind of applied to close that gap, right? Let's say ASUA is asking for, off the top of my head, I don't know the specifics, I could get them, but I don't have them in front of me. Let's say they were asking for 100,000 in funding, and we asked for 15. In future years, we might move towards saying, okay, we're going to not ask for 15, and now ASUA can ask for 115, and it'll be looked at, we do that as one application. They haven't made that in their application this year, so it's probably not best for us to just forfeit that money and let SSFAB figure it out. So I don't support that, at least not this year. And lastly, I don't think if we do need to reduce how much we are requesting, that's certainly a discussion we should have. But I don't see what is so, this discussion has come up in SSFAB, and Danielle can weigh in on this. I don't think it's so bad that we have a certain amount of our funds earmarked specifically for graduate students, right? That's kind of what we're here to do as advocates, is to find ways that we can secure resources specifically dedicated for our constituencies. While I do think, having gone through both the ASUA and GPSC funding procedures, I do think ASUA has a different process that some people might think is more favorable and perhaps more transparent than ours. I do have concerns that because it is largely run by undergraduates, graduate students may begin to get a negative perception, right? There are a few seats on the ASUA appropriations board that are reserved for grad students. Often they're vacant, and I have concerns that grad students are going to say these undergraduate students are going to look at my application negatively because they don't understand it, or negatively because they think, well, I want this money for I'm an undergraduate advocate. I'm not going to go hand out our money to grad students. So I have those reservations, and again, I think it gets to our core responsibilities here to advocate and try and bring home the bacon for our constituents.
Okay, that's it. This will be Danielle, me, Remington, Megan, and Claudia.
So yeah, just to echo some of that, basically, as it's currently written, ASUA and GPSE differ because ASUA covers, they do not allow for travel. And in some of the cases, when people are requesting club funding, they can request travel to an event together, right, like as a group. So that's something that's not in there. There's a couple of other things, and so what my suggestion was at SSFAB was that GPSE needs to get together with ASUA, and we can work out those changes, and then it's easier because then we can just request one pot with a little chart that's allocated within, like, right, the $15,000 to be allocated to them or whatever. That's not in place yet. We haven't scheduled a meeting, but I had made a suggestion earlier to Storm that we should meet with Trey, who is the person who made the proposal for ASUA's club funding, to try and get that in, maybe even as a par, if it, like once these are approved, and then potentially, or if they're approved, I guess I should say, because we haven't voted on anything yet,
And I don't know if PARs affect the final dollar. I thought it just affects how they move the dollar.
allocate it around with them.
Yeah, so I
maybe,
would be able to
I
bump it
don't know,
up.
I mean, I think that people can still make changes to their budgets as of right now though,
Okay.
because we haven't voted on anything, so if that's the case, then we might be able to get them to revise theirs with our stuff in it and then pull our app. I don't think it would be a bad thing to pull the app, but I think that we need to make sure we have this in place, just like Storm was saying, before we do pull the app. The reason for that is, the reason that I think it's not a bad idea to pull it once we have this in place is because then that's $15,000 more that people might say, okay, well, they pulled this request for $15,000, so let's like maybe give some more money to travel grants or something like that, because again, that is a big service that we provide, for travel and grants. And those are the things that I think we should prioritize. I'm not saying that I don't think club funding is important. I do think it's important, but of the two, I would say that POE funding is probably more valuable to the university as a whole than club funding is for graduate students, if we're gonna pick and choose. Because with POE funding, we can make the argument that if we bring people to campus to give a talk or something, that undergrads can go to that as well. It's not just for grad students, right? So, I would just say we've been thinking about this, and we're gonna talk with Trey and see what we can come up with. But this is just something that I think you all should be thinking about, because ultimately this is the council's decision.
Okay. I was just going to say that as someone before GPSE, I also did a PUD sort of thing on my own, and I used all the money like within a week and a half because I needed the money for something really specific. So and I think personally that the club funding doesn't really speak to the things we ought to be doing with our money, especially if we're going to be having trouble paying for travel or paying for research, because those are the things that graduate students all do and don't. Like if we're going to have a social club about chess or whatever, those are things they're going to do anyway, whether we're paying for it or not. So that's just me advocating for, if not, I see what someone's saying, but we can reduce the application amount
Yes.
too. We don't have to say zero it out entirely. So it might be beneficial for us as a whole. We might get more money in total if we say drop this application a little bit. And I think playing that game might be the way to go about it. Ready?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm adding anything new at this point, because I think you guys all talked about exactly where I was going with it, but I just, the only concern I had was, and maybe I don't understand it as in depth as everyone else, because I haven't used anything. So the question I had was, if we are reducing that club funding, is that money then allocated somewhere else? Do we know it's good? Can we allocate it, like we can move it where we want, or is it like we have to apply? Like, how's that work?
We don't move it where we want. We ask for a certain amount of money, they give it, and we ask for particular applications for things. So we say we want $200,000 for travel, and they give us $155,000 because that's all they have. So if we drop, theoretically, if we drop this application, that's $15,000 that might end up in travel.
And we don't know
We
if
wish
that
would not have gotten.
And we don't know necessarily if it would
Right.
end up in travel or not, so we
Right.
could potentially lose
This
money
is-
overall for the graduate population.
This is kind of a poker sort of moment.
understood.
Is that clear to everybody? Okay. Megan.
So just a couple notes for everyone as you mull this over. I I think there could be a memo of understanding that you have with ASUA that says, I mean, they're very good at keeping, like, they're good on their word. If you say, you know, ASUA this year they got 150,000 from SSF and they got 50,000 from ASUA. They could say 15,000 of that is dedicated towards graduate student clubs, and that is what, like, no undergraduate clubs can touch that money. And you could have separate rules and say, hey, appropriations board, like, this is how we want you to distribute this kind of money. You can add more people to the appropriations board, like Storm said, although that seat is vacant, and the appropriations board chair did ask if anybody would like to join the appropriations committee for ASUA. So if you do, let me know. Or if you know anybody, a graduate student, that would be cool too. So yeah, I think between an MOU and an earmark, and having that earmarked money, I think that solves a lot of problems. ASUA appropriations meets on a weekly basis, so clubs would get their money probably a little bit more quickly, and I think it's a better use of resources for you all to not do club. I mean, that's a very personal opinion on my end. But I think there are other places that you can put your, like, actual time instead of reviewing club stuff. So that's all I'll say about that, but whatever you all think is best for your students.
Okay. Claudia?
Yeah, it's really brief too. I have spoken with some people from my college, and we're kind of concerned about funding people from POD especially. So I guess if it is taken away, I was wondering if there's another option for.
As far as I know, like, you were saying that we put in some money and SSFAB meets it, or we meet the amount of money that, so they wouldn't,
There's matching funds, but this would be only club.
yeah,
We're not talking about POD.
right. So for those of you who don't know, POD is professional development thing. So if you're having a conference here and it's $1,500 total. So you have a conference here, you bring a speaker, something that's directly related to either research, teaching, something that the university does. Clubs are more social, and you can get up to $500 for clubs. So it's that's the distinction we're making, and what I think Megan and Danielle have been advocating is dropping club funding down and not necessarily upping POD. I think POD is a good thing to spend that time on, but that's just me.
Well, and I want to make sure to just to reiterate so everybody's on the same page, Storm and I really do need to sit down and talk this, right? Because if there's a way we can get that worked out for this year, then that's the best way to move forward, because it would be the best of both worlds. Because I think that, from what I understand, ASUA has club funding that they don't allocate in full usually every year. So there's not necessarily a reason to ask for a bigger piece of the pie as a bigger ask. We could just say, we usually have X amount left over anyway, so can you just allocate this to grad students for these specific things that are grad student necessities, like funding group travel?
Yeah. It'll be Storm and Jim.
Okay, there's no one else who was in front of me. So I found the specifics that I was given as part of SSFAB. So I want to correct one thing Danielle said. ASUA's club funding last year, they they were allocated $151,500. They spent every dime of that. So it's not like they just had a surplus sitting over. I think if we are going to move forward with eliminating it, we should really push to get, for lack of a better word, get it in writing. They're going to, that they're going to set aside money for us. Since I have the numbers in front of me, similar to what Jasmine was saying, just so we have kind of idea of these numbers that she was referring to, we were allocated $15,200 for club funding last year. We only spent $4,270. So again, if we're wanting to move this down, maybe we go in and ask 5, maybe we go in and ask 6, something like that, something that's closer, so we don't have this big gap. Because as I think Jasmine alluded to, and as I can say, I've definitely heard in SSFAB meetings, there is a little bit of a negative view toward applications. I don't think this is necessarily true for the department itself, but their individual applications if they don't spend the right amount of money. So I don't think it's necessarily true. Getting back to clarify for Claudia, we have 4 GPSC applications that kind of are directly related to student. We have more than 4, but we have 4 that are kind of all in the same realm: club funding, POD, travel grants, and then REAP. Those are all 4 separate applications. So the fact that we underspend on club funding might be viewed negatively. Realistically, in my experience on the SSFAB, they only look negatively at that application, right? So we underspent on travel grants last year by about 4,700. That really hasn't come up yet in the discussion. No one's looked at it and said, you know, we should really rethink our whole process for GPSC because of that, or, you know, that's not how it really necessarily works. So I think that they do look negatively, again, like for instance with POD, we are underspending as well by about 11,000. So just to keep that in mind. But again, if we can get language like that from the ASUA, and if this means that their application, you know, bumps up by an extra 6,000, and that's earmarked for ICF and SCF equivalency of whatever they treat that as, I can get behind that. But you know, again, we want to be conscious of. I can speak definitely for law students, with the exception of SJDs and LLMs who might be actually doing the research stuff. A lot of the funding that my constituents are after is club-based funding, and with law school clubs, this isn't necessarily social generally because there is this professional development aspect involved in you know, weekly speaker series where you have an actual professional coming in, and that's how the club funds and provides services for those. So that's where that kind of goes on our end.
Clarification real quick, when you said underspending, are you saying that, are we allocating that money to clubs and they only spent that 5,000 of that 15?
No,
Or are you saying that 15 was the SSFAB allocated
The
to us?
15.2 is what SSFAB gives us.
Okay.
I don't have the specific because these numbers are given by SSFAB.
Sure.
I'm sure I could find out from Jim what we then apportioned for
Right.
clubs, and then they actually spent $4,000 roughly.
Alright.
So SSFAB gave us 15.2. We spent 4K.
That'd be interesting to look into what the discrepancy would be, especially with the discussion about the marketing, because maybe we are allocating that much closer to that 15K, and that'd be a very useful thing to bring into the meeting to be like, okay, we're offering this money to the students, they're not using it, or why are we not getting it out? Is this a marketing issue perhaps? So it would be interesting to look into that. Yeah.
Megan, I don't know exactly what your speaker series is, but if it is professional development related, it should be able to get POD funding for that. Like you should be able to, depending on what exactly it is, but having speakers is what POD is for. So like I'm not saying
We don't necessarily like pay speakers, and a lot of our club stuff is on like weekly. I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, but
Okay.
clubs generally, you know, you have honestly, the way we get our, we would get people to sit in there is pump out marketing, get our flyers up, stuff like that, outreach, and that's where we get that ICF funding to help us with that.
all right, just as long as we're looking food. Okay, Jim and then Jasmine.
Yeah, just quickly to clarify, probably a nuance. We do have some clubs on campus that do some big important stuff like Peace Corps, and they apply for, say, initial club funding to ASUA, and then apply for initial club funding to DPSC. If we cut off our club funding, for some organizations, we're cutting their budget in half, in a practical sense. So again, some of our constituents may not be happy about that. So,
Do you want to go next?
Why don't you respond to that?
Okay, I think that's a really good point, and I think that's something that maybe Storm and Danielle can talk to Trey about if they can still apply for both funding, because if they earmark that 15,000 for specifically for graduate students and say we're only going to do it for these specific things, my understanding is that those are different things than ASUA initially funds for anyway. So maybe they could still hit from both pots. So that's something to talk about.
Jasmine?
So another thing to keep in mind is that historically, and it's not just this year and it's not just last year, historically we have been very slow at responding to club and POD applications, which has caused problems for our constituents. Historically, we've actually been pretty on time with research and project grants and with travel grants. So it would also make sense for us to try to get as much SSFAB money for the programs we know we can commit to being reliable with, rather than for programs that we've had a kind of spotty record for. Also, every year we allocate some of our general fund to research and project grants and to travel grants. And so internally, we actually can move the general fund money around and say that if we're getting less money from SSFAB for club and POD, we can allocate general funds for club and POD. Now, there's a cool thing there. So SSFAB has some specific restrictions on how to spend money. One of those things is it expires on June 30th. If you have not spent it by then, it is gone and we cannot get it back. We know how to work within those restrictions, and all of the money we distribute almost falls under those restrictions for travel and research and project grants. And so adding more SSFAB money to those pools would not be much of a hardship for us. We can still handle that. But having those restrictions on club and POD is challenging, and we have lost money because of that in the past. And so using general funds instead to fund club and POD would reduce some of the stress associated with trying to run those programs. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind. Just because if we withdrew our applications for club, for example, from SSFAB, that does not mean we would have no money for club. It would mean that it would be coming from a different place if we chose to allocate it. And then one final thing, to the point of double dipping on club funding, given that all of that comes out of SSFAB and the same students who are applying to ASUA and GPSC for club funding only paid the student services fee once, I would actually say that eliminating double dipping would be a feature, not a bug.
Okay, Storm.
I think, and this is touching on your, the double dipping. I want to make sure, what do you mean by that? You mean like a club is applying to ASUA and then applying to us, and you know, ASUA says, yeah, you get 300, and we say you get 200. So I actually think, and again, this might be a little bit more controversial. I think that eliminates some burden on applicants, because I know that ASUA, and I know that we look at this too. It's not necessarily a strict guideline, but we want to look at alternative sources of funding, and clubs want to show that they're looking to go to more than just you for handouts. For some reason, when we get travel grants you want to see on that budget, have they talked to other departments? And a lot of times that is a plus factor of they're talking to the Department of College of Humanities to get a certain kick in on their POD application, and they're coming to us. So it is beneficial for applicants to be able to say, look, it's not just I'm getting my member fees and I'm coming to you for the rest. They can say, I'm coming to you, I'm coming to ASUA, I've got my member fees, I'm trying to go to as many people as I can. So I think there's actually a benefit to that we would be removing from them, because ASUA might look at that negatively and say, you didn't go to the grad, there's a grad student government, you didn't go to them though.
So the distinction is, if we have a $500 cap, and we actually don't have a cap on club funding at all, you can apply for whatever you want. If we have a $500 cap and ASU has a $500 cap, a club can apply to $1,000 total by doing $500 from each of us, and that's what they currently do.
I know, but if they have
Okay.
1,000, yeah, but because they have to submit the same receipt, they're not getting double paid out of it. They're getting their $500 either way. If they have $1,000 worth of expenses, my question is what's the problem with them seeking multiple sources of funding?
There might not be for you. That's all.
I'm just curious. That's
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, in the past, we've occasionally allowed a representative to cede their time to people in the room. I think we had some club people in the room. I don't know if Dan will allow it. I'm willing to cede my time or anyone else. If we wanted to let some constituents talk, I think we have some people. Just wanted to throw that out.
All right, we do have club people here. I'm not opposed to it, but we're rapidly running out of, it's almost been an hour. So if we were to do so, I'd like a time limit on that. Is there any objection to having club members speak? in the room?
No, but I would also like to say it's not like we're gonna vote on anything tonight, because like I said, this will be the third time probably now that Storm and I wanna sit down and trade, and that'll probably at least be later this week.
Okay.
Not opposed to more input though.
Not opposed to
Give
one
10
person.
minutes.
Anybody else? All right, so 10 minutes. I think there are 3 people.
We're all in club here.
Okay, so all you're in one club?
Us three over here.
So there are 2 clubs. Okay, awesome. So 5 minutes per club.
We don't even need that much time,
Okay.
honestly.
Sure.
So I'm the president, my name is Jerry, I'm the president of the Peace Corps Fellows Club, which you referred to, Jim. And I just learned about this meeting like a few hours ago, so I don't really have anything prepared. But like he mentioned, we don't have a huge budget, and so a big portion of what we do need comes from GPSC, and it's pretty important to us. Our biggest event takes place during Peace Corps Week, which is coming up in a few weeks, and so the problem with, I feel like, GPSC funding not being an option for us anymore is ASUA is more selective because we get funding from all different colleges across campus, and so I think ASUA requires that we don't have that access from other funding sources or something like that. I don't know the numbers or whatever, but so that would be a big deal for us. And so we have like a budget of 13,000 to 15,000 during Peace Corps Week, and I know around 3,000 comes from GPSC every year. And so it would be a pretty big hit for us for doing this.
Okay. And then you guys?
So ASUA really emphasizes being a supplementary funding source, and if you get any funding from any campus like group, and if you get more than 30% for any event, they won't fund you at all, and they'll take away your funding for that event.
Okay.
So I don't know what your guys' understanding on that, but
Okay. Can you tell me, sorry, which club are you?
UA Fish and Wildlife Society.
You're in Fish and Wildlife Society. Okay. So, all right. So I'm hearing that the Peace Corps definitely doesn't want to have to rely totally on ASUA's rules, and also you need the money. And I'm hearing Fish and Wildlife, same sort of deal. Does that make sense? Is there anything else you guys wanted to add to that? I don't. Jerry?
Clarification, so they'll retroactively take away their award, your money, if they find out that you got awarded money from somewhere else?
They expect us to report back to them if we get more funding from another campus group and be reasonable and give the money back.
That's ridiculous. It's like you applied all these places and they're all up in the air.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Anybody else would like to? Alright, so what I'm hearing from the constituents, and I think what I'm hearing from Storm and Danielle, is that we need to work out exactly how this is going to work, and I need to speak to ASUA directly. I think Megan's idea of having us specifically earmarked and also separate special rules, our rules for GPSC stuff, would probably eliminate the problem that you're foreseeing. And likewise, as Jasmine has said already, we, by withdrawing this application from SSFAB does not mean we're not also capable of funding clubs still. We just won't use SSFAB money for it. Okay, is that clear? And anyone object to that summation of events? Okay, I would like Danielle and Storm to go talk to Trey and see if something can be worked out.
I emailed him just now to set up the meeting.
Okay, excellent.
So I'll motion to table this until the next GC where we provide an update.
Alright, so motion, seconded, any objections? Alright. Okay, so, cool. Let's go back to, Jesse. Jesse's here. So, the National Association of Grad and Professional Students, I don't know what LAD stands for.
Legislative Action Days.
Yeah.
So, the Angie, thank you, does 2 legislative action days, one in the spring, one in the fall. One for the spring is coming up March 11th through the 14th. We have historically sent 1 or 2 or more people to it. I think that we're sending people again this year. Danielle and I have been, and Jude have been participating on the monthly calls with the legislative committee, and they have just come out with their issues, which are a bit different. They pretty much have the same issues for at least 4 or 5 years, and they're taking a new approach. They have a new legislative affairs director who is actually from ASU, just right up the road. And so she has a new approach, and they are going to try to work some of the traditional asks through the executive branch and through agencies, particularly F1 visas and student loans. So they are prioritizing this year sexual assault and health insurance, which, and Danielle and I had a follow-up call because,
With Sam, that's the,
yeah, because I was pretty confused on why in this political climate, we would be going after those 2 issues and why we would ever abandon funding. But she explained her strategy, and I don't fully agree with it, but I do appreciate the fact that she is trying to run a strategy and trying to approach this from multiple angles. And so, sexual assault is her #1 issue, and when I really pressed her for what is the legislative action that you want on this, she kind of said that it would be through the Department of Education on Title IX reporting and getting universities to be held accountable for reporting, including universities that underreport significantly. So that's that issue. For healthcare, it's really the continuation of SHIP, which at the beginning of this year we were talking about healthcare, and they did the 1-year continuation, and so this will continue those efforts to figure out what will go on with student healthcare. So the rule is if we go, we can talk about whatever we want. However, they're very short meetings that are highly coordinated, and it would be strange for 4 people to all hit the same issue and then us kind of come up with something seemingly out of the blue, even if it was a very traditional issue for us. So I think what I would suggest is that we participate with those issues, because I know those are issues that we also talk about here, but then take it upon ourselves to meet with the members in their district offices, here in the community, because obviously everyone will not be going to DC, but this is a way that you can participate. Grijalva's office is literally right down the street, and McSally is not too far the other direction. McSally has been very friendly on several issues, so I think there's a lot of opportunity with her to educate her about the issues. I think she's very receptive to meeting with constituents, and she's in the majority party, and she's in a swing district, so she should have some favors to call in, and if we could get on her agenda, that would be very beneficial. Grijalva is on the education committee, so that's always someone who we would want the ear of, that person. So I'm going to be working to coordinate those. I say this every time. If you'd like to join me, please let me know. And on that note, why aren't you guys joining me on anything?
Just to follow up, so our recommendation right now is, I've spoken with Jude about this, and we have basically a soft confirmation that there's money in the budget to send both of us. We're getting double confirmation on that with Claudia. Cindy. Sorry, Claudia's like, what? So there's soft confirmation on that right now. If there's not enough money to send both of us, my recommendation is to send Jessie, because she is our legislative affairs director. This is what we pay her to do. And actually on the phone conversation with Sam, basically she said, we would like for you to spend like one of the first days kind of going over how to talk to congressmen. Like we would like to put you in charge of a group of like basically teaching people how to talk to Congress, right? So that's cool. And she knows what she's doing, so I think, yeah, if anybody should go, the two of us, if we have to make a decision, I would recommend that Jessie go. Again, this is just kind of for transparency's sake, we wanted to let you guys know that we probably will be attending. If there is enough money in the budget, we will probably be going, but we're waiting for confirmation on that.
Questions?
Any questions?
In the past, we've sent several students. Are we not trying to bring students as well to LADs?
I just think that we're concerned about the budget. If you remember earlier this year, basically we had set a cap on how many events we were going to attend with NAGPS and how many people were going to go to those. So we're trying to keep it to a small minimum. But if somebody else would rather go over me, I would let that happen as well. I just want to make sure that we're sending people that are prepared to talk, because Jessie's really going to work with me to make sure that I'm not saying anything dumb.
Yeah. Or if you guys have used like your travel grants yet or things like that, you could look for other sources of funding as well to get yourself there, right?
Yeah, that's true. People could seek out and commit funding
Sure.
if they want to.
I've gone forward straight.
Okay, is there any other questions? Okay.
I would just add the Wildcat Wednesday will be going up to Phoenix, and this is just graduate and professional students. We will be scheduling meetings with individual members and sitting down and having a conversation with them. So it's a good opportunity. Right now, I think the same 4 people that went last time are going this time. Love to have more of you come.
Actually, I won't be able to go this time because I have a conference.
All right, so we're down.
We're down to 3.
We're down to 3 so
and
far.
It's a lovely time. They feed you lunch. You get to talk to legislators. It's going to be a good time. Mike's a lot of fun. You hang out in the Senate House. Hannah is there. Everyone loves Hannah. So I would strongly urge you, if you're capable of going, and I know that there's some sweepstakes, sideshow, whatever the hell it's called.
The showcase is the same day.
It's the same day. But even if you guys can't go, you can in fact ask your constituents to go. I'm gonna try and send someone from the English Graduate Union in my place. So like
This is this Wednesday?
it's the 22nd of February, so it's 2 weeks from now. So
And I know some people have communicated that Wednesdays just don't work for them for a variety of reasons. If that's the case and you do want to go, more than happy to coordinate another trip or two on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. They're in session Monday through Thursday, and Mike will gladly schedule those and do the same thing. It doesn't have to be on a Wednesday. So if this is something that you're interested in, it can just be me and you going up there. We don't have to have a huge group, and we can have some meaningful meetings. So if you're interested, I will make it happen.
Okay, so,
Call,
get some interest, please.
email, it'll be a time.
Okay,
Thanks.
awesome, thanks Jesse, thanks Danielle. Okay, Jude, are you,
Yes, I am. I just sent out this survey to you all. So, as many of you may know, fee on tuition increases, it's basically daily tradition in the university right now. I've expressed significant concerns over that, and one of the things or strategy we came up with was to do a survey, which we're calling fee survey, and part of the goal with that is one, to kind of assess students' awareness of the fees they pay, and then secondly, to get an idea as to the kind of fees or what fees specifically students will not mind to see an increase in. That's just going to help us as we go through our current tuition and fee discussion, which has started happening already. Danielle and Justin is doing that. We'd use the data we get from this survey to actually either stand against the certain fees or come to a compromise on what is a reasonable increase for some fees. Now, the athletic fee is also part of that survey, partly because from the meeting we had with President Hart recently, it appears that they are trying to introduce that fee again, and this time around he proposed that it's even more than what they had proposed last year. And our goal with that is to say 0 to it, but we also want to get students' input and see what they think. Now, having said that, what we need from you all in terms of this space to participate and then encourage your constituents to participate. The reason is, last year, in a meeting with Dr. Hart, he practically questioned the integrity of our survey, athletic survey last year. He said 1,000 responses was not representative of the student population, like the graduate professional student population. And we don't want to run into that issue where 1,000 or less than that participation would not be reflective of student voice. So we'd like you to talk to as many people as you can to participate in the survey. Talk to your constituent, keep reminding them. We'll try and leave it open for 2 or 3 weeks, but we want to have a result before the end of the month because things are happening really quickly. And by the first week of March, if I understand correctly, I think the president will be making a recommendation to ABLE, and we want to be able to have that input within the university before we can get down to ABLE. So my encouragement is please help us get this word out to as many people as we can. And then lastly, I just sent out the survey to you all. Although it might be pretty late at this point to make any changes, but we'd like to just get like approval basically from the council that you guys are fine with these questions. If you have a significant recommendation that you think will improve the survey significantly, I wouldn't mind doing the last minute changes. But other than that, this is what we're going to go with at this point.
this was put together by our survey guy, Nick?
Yes, Nick Havey, and he would want to come to the council sometime in the future to discuss all the surveys he has in mind to put up this year.
Okay.
I just want to say, this was also in coordination with our assessment and research office for student affairs. So professional staff have been involved in this, and I think
Joel, Melissa,
Hoff.
a lot of people have been
So,
involved in
yeah.
it as well.
So,
It's gone through a lot of scrutiny,
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
very honest.
so actual social scientists that are watching this. So, Dustin.
I was just gonna say, I have problems with some of these questions because I was aware of the individual fees. I don't know what you're planning to get. I mean, all these seem very biased, right? Like, I think, like you said, President Hart was saying last year about how our surveys are not accurate or whatever, but this isn't gonna be much better, I don't think. Because you view athletics fee, for example, you have $0 to $500, and they don't get, there's no indication that they get anything out of it, and so everybody's gonna choose 0. And if President Hart looks at this and like, she's gonna say, this question is based, everybody's gonna choose 0.
Okay,
Right.
Alan, Dustin, sorry. Alan, and then Jude.
Yeah, I guess I just wanna echo that same sentiment, and just, I don't even understand why, I know what a sliding scale fee service is, but there's absolutely no explanation about it. And Sorry, that's not a sliding scale fee. It actually is a description of what the survey will look like. It will be a sliding scale bar that you can
It's gonna
drag.
be dragging, so,
Yeah.
so,
Oh.
this,
Yeah,
this
I-
is not what it looks like, so this is just a question.
I still say that that's not actually gonna be that's not gonna output any valid results for which we can draw a conclusion other than 0.
Okay, that's, I will say that's the conclusion we're trying to get to.
No, I mean, yes,
Yeah.
but
Yes, but
If I'm going to respond to that, part of the issue with the athletic fee specifically is at this point, nobody knows what exactly they need the fee for. Last time, they said they needed it for the stadium. Now, Greg is gone, and from what we had today, we actually had to rephrase our question today a little bit. From what we had today, nobody knows what the next athletic director would propose or recommend this fee to be used for. So it's really hard to say, to put very explicit explanations on what it is for. Quite frankly, I'm with whoever made that comment. We all know that a lot of grad students, well, I don't want to speak for everybody, but as a grad student, I'm absolutely opposed to athletic fee. I don't see how it benefits me. I don't see how it improves my research. I don't see how it's going to let me get a job after school. I really don't see how paying an athletic fee is going to be beneficial to me. And then with other questions as to were you are aware of this fee, Dustin, you might know the fees you pay, but there are people who do not know fees that you pay. They just see $512 and they pay that, and they really don't know they're paying for white card event boards, is that what they call it, Arizona Media, and a lot of things that you could easily opt out from. So we just want to kind of see that they are aware of that. But if you guys have a problem with the part of awareness, we can easily take that away. The critical part is the other two questions that follow, which is, would you approve an increase in the fee and the services that it provides? And like I said, a lot of people have been involved in this, and we've gone through a lot of changes. We work with Student Affairs Division, and the version we have right now is what they feel comfortable with, at least to some extent.
Alright, so it's gonna be Jasmine, Raul, Jennifer, Dustin, Dylan.
I think one thing to keep in mind is that GPSC is not unilaterally developing and putting out the survey. It is an official group that is recognized as good at surveys. And so it would be much, much harder for an administrator to come back and say, oh, this was a biased question, it doesn't count. Because that's the whole point of us working with this group. So I would be a little less worried about that.
Alright, well,
The only thing I'm worried is that if you ask people about fees, they immediately assume that their fees are going to increase. So they're just gonna say, I don't wanna pay anything. They're just gonna say 0. So if we can put warnings here that we are just asking, because I know that there's no expected increase on fees for health and recreation. They are not expected to ask for more right now.
That's not accurate. There is an expert significant increase.
He's on the committee, so that's a little
Well,
concerning.
I don't think the committee has been informed yet.
so there's fees coming, basically, and letting them know that fees are coming is a feature of the survey, not a problem so much. Makes sense? Okay, if something Jay said.
Yeah. So I obviously spent a lot less time thinking about this than a lot of other people in the room have. So this is my very early thought process, 2 cents, but maybe there could be a question added in there that says something to the effect of, I would be willing to pay a fee for, and then kind of open-ended discussion, just to kind of get a sense for, if asked, do you want to spend money, almost always people are going to say no, which obviously is kind of the answer we're looking for. But maybe a question you could ask is, what would you be willing to spend money for? So if you have to get a fee, what do you support the most? What's important to you as a grad student? And then we could take those numbers and say, look, nobody said athletics, a lot of people said this. So if we are gonna have a fee, this is where grad student interests lie.
Okay, Dustin.
So yeah, I was just gonna kind of add to what Jennifer said. So everybody knows we're gonna increase fees. So I think it's important to figure out what people use, right? What they were willing to pay for. Because I think that's better of a survey to say, hey, we're willing to pay for library services, we're not willing to pay for athletics. we're willing to pay for this for our rec center, we're not, you know, I think that's more important to know where we can go up as opposed to figuring out, you know, what they don't want. Because this is just gonna basically come up with they don't want anything, and that's not gonna help us at all.
I do want to point out that those are the kinds of questions that we're seeing. So we're saying, this is the fee that you're currently paying. Would you be willing to increase this particular fee? So that sort of thing is in the survey already. Maria.
Just to mention, I think maybe my memory is incorrect, but I thought there was some sort of survey last year we did similar.
Yes, the university has declared it null and void, even though 1,000 graduate students were polled and
I
95%
thought there
of
was
them. And
Okay.
it was not considered accurate or correct, which is why we're having the group of survey people on campus do this survey. So that they do this.
Can I just respond to what you said? What I want is like ask them if they use the service, like how many hours you go to the gym, how many hours you go to the library, you know, so we know an accurate number of what our students utilize.
Do you go to the stadium? Do you watch it on TV?
Exactly.
And I think a lot of that information is available in different surveys and different things. I'm certain that Campus Rec tracks how many graduate students use their facilities. We know how many, generally graduate students aren't going to athletic games, things like that. So I think that information is available. This is only on like, are you aware of the fees that you pay? And it says all of the fees that you pay. And then, would you support an increase in those fees that you pay? And it even gives an explanation of what the fees are. So if you're like, yeah, library and technology fee, like that makes sense, I'm a graduate student, those are things that I use, I would totally support a fee increase on that, but whatever the other fees may be, probably not. So, I think the structure of this text is hard to understand, the way that it's like set up in this Word doc. And I think that might be some of the confusion, but you rest assured that some good administrators are working on this.
I have a question. Is the real survey available like in beta testing or whatever so that we might be able to look at it?
Yes, he told me that was a really good tool, but I could ask him to send out a link to the general council and then you guys can do that. But I don't have a link right now.
Okay, so but we could get an idea of what it actually looks like in practice. That might make it a little simpler.
I could ask him to send out a link to the council.
Excellent.
Same questions. Yes.
John.
I actually really like the fact that this survey goes on and on because it really highlights the point that we have an absurd amount of fees. So I think it's really important. It's easy to gloss over them when you just see a giant number at the end of your bill. And you're like, well, there's nothing I can do about it, and you become hopeless and just pity yourself. So, but this survey, by asking you every single question, it really says, wow, Jesus, we pay a lot of fees. Are these all really necessary? So I actually think it's great that it has that many questions. Not that anyone has said that they don't think that, but I actually like the fact that it seems overbearing and obnoxious, but it really stresses the point that you really have to think about, are these fees necessary? So that's all I wanted to add.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
There is not a motion on the table.
Actually, I'm just going to make a motion that the council approves the survey and we'll send it out, if not today, tomorrow, because we want to have our results before the end of the month. And we need to run this for 12 pages.
I second.
Okay, so a motion to approve this survey as is, without any changes. I don't think there's going to be any in the next 2 days. So can I get ayes for that, please? Five, six, seven. 16 ayes, any nays? 2 nays, any abstentions? Motion passes. Alright, so this is going to be sent out. I would make a motion that everyone in the room fill out the survey as graduate students, because if you're not willing to do it, then your constituents aren't in the hall, thing is pointless. Can I get a second?
Sorry.
Right. Official verbal.
Oh, this is official, okay.
I'm actually, yeah, I'm actually.
So now I have to do it.
I'm not joking.
I'm ethically committed to do it.
What's happening? Yeah. 10, 13, 15, 17, 18, 19, 19 eyes, 20 eyes, 20 eyes. Okay. Any nays? Alright. Okay. No, I mean, any abstentions? 6 questions. Alright. 7 abstentions. It should be ready to go imminently, and you guys can fill out a survey, like, we all have to do them. So,
Is it coming from Drew's account?
it'll be coming out through,
We'll send it out we'll send it to the listserv, we'll send it out to as many residents as we have, keep the contact, so you get it somehow.
and again, I'm strongly gonna say, go back to your constituents. I go to my union meeting, I'm gonna be like, y'all have to fill the survey out, have to, like, bar them in a room and make them do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hey, Daniel, can I
Yes.
move that we return to the new capital alternate item, because we actually never did that?
the what now?
New capital alternate under approvals.
Okay, we can, why?
Because he emailed a statement that he wants me to read.
Okay,
And so hopefully we can approve him, even though he cannot make our meetings, because he really wants to get started on all the GPSC stuff.
okay, so, for those of you who don't know, Eric Lewis has resigned due to other commitments. There's gonna be a new alternate for CAPLA, just like, we went through with Matt earlier today, and he sent in his, signatures and a statement.
Yeah.
Jasmine, can you read the statement,
All right.
please?
Hello, my name is Josh. I am a first-year MS in Planning student at the College of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape Architecture. I seek to represent CAPLA and GPSC because I believe it is crucial to ethically represent graduate student objectives. I have really enjoyed my past positions as a liaison for the School of Sociology Governance Board, the Senior Student Brand Ambassador Council for Kaplan Test Prep, and the DECA. I want to provide my best insights and experiences while advocating for graduate students at CAPLA.
Okay, sweet, all right, so can I get a motion?
I move to approve him as alternate.
Move to approve, second, can I get ayes? 20 ayes, any nays? 1 nay, any abstentions? 8 abstentions, okay. Welcome aboard, Josh. I will have him sign his oath, on a not Monday night, but soon. Okay, so, this research grant application appeal, I
Yeah.
think.
The application's been withdrawn, so unless the student changes his mind and explicitly says that he wants us to consider his appeal, we really need to not discuss it at the moment.
Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Alright, so, tabled indefinitely. Awesome. Alright, so this is the fun part of the evening. We have less than 40 minutes for the term limit vote. Here's how I foresee this going. We're going to vote on the 2 that were sent out a week ago, because those are the ones that come from committee. They're these 2. We've had, there was a subcommittee that talked about this specifically because this entire group of people can't have a logical conversation about this. So my suggestion is to have a time limit on the first one, 10 minutes, at which point we vote as to whether or not we're going to accept it. And if that fails or passes, we will go from there. But if it fails, then we move on to the next one and do 10 minutes there. Because does that work for everybody? Are there any considerations?
Motion for further discussion.
Okay, well, no. Is there anybody who wants to second that motion?
Second.
All right, so eyes up if you would like to go talk longer than 10 minutes about the first amendment. Eyes up, please.
So we have
Can we move to extend discussion after we've actually hit that 10-minute cap?
Well, no, we have a motion and a second on the floor, and the eyes, if you want to talk more than 10 minutes about this first amendment, please raise your placard. Now.
We motion for further discussion
Yes,
on term limits in general.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Okay, raise your placard if you want to talk for more than 20 minutes about this.
More than 20?
Yes. About term limits.
I have a question. Once this happens, do we have the opportunity to extend it if
You do, in
more
fact.
discussion?
At the 10-minute mark, someone can extend it if necessary. Just raise your hand, or raise your placard if you want to talk for more than 20 minutes, because that's the amount of time I'm putting on the clock.
Why don't we do 10 minutes?
Sorry?
Why don't we talk about term limits in general for 10 minutes?
Because we're going to talk about the first one for 10 minutes, which is what I said. We've asked for an extended amount of time, and I want eyes up if anyone wants to
Now,
extend
to
it.
clarify, the motion was to talk about term limits, not to talk about this particular language.
The motion was to further
Okay.
conversation on term limits in general.
So, there's a motion on the floor to have more conversation about term limits. Would anyone who would like that, please raise your placards. I see 5 placards, 8 placards, 9 placards, 10 placards. Anyone would like to talk, not talk in an extended amount about term limits, please raise your placard. See, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So now we're going to stick with my one abstention. We're going to
For
stick,
the record.
we're going to stick with my plan. So we
Okay,
have
motion to go through the motions, the absentee
Why
ballot
doesn't,
motion.
why don't we let Daniel run the
we
meeting?
don't have any. I have a absentee ballot, actually, which is not about whether or not we're going to spend more time on it. So it's not actually relevant to this conversation. If anyone would like to know, Tae-Jin votes aye on this first version. So there's one aye on this first version. So, can we talk about this first version? Does anyone have anything to say about this first version of the amendment?
Point of order, there's still the motion on the table, original motion to limit this discussion to 10 minutes.
That's true.
We never actually passed that or voted it down.
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about how much time we're going to spend.
Me neither, but I want to cap it.
Okay, so
I wanna make
are
sure
you
we-
seconding it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that motion is seconded to spend no more than 20 minutes talking about this. 10 minutes talking about this first version, 10 minutes then on the next one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so ayes have it. We only want to spend 10 minutes about this first one and 10 about the next one.
Maximum, not total.
5, 9, 13, 15. Any nays? Any abstentions? 5, 8, 11, 12, 12 abstentions. Okay. So, anyone have anything to say about this first version? Jim, and then Raul, and remember, please, 10 minutes.
So I just wanted to make the comment that what is occurring here is specific language from committee has been set forth as the only sources available to this point. The committee was formed for purposes of discussing term limits. The committee was not formed for purposes of forming specific language for vote. Roughly half this council didn't want term limits, and it seems to me that we're not being allowed to make that choice anymore. So,
I'm going to ask for clarification. Did these come seconded from the subcommittee about
Yes,
term
they
limits?
did.
Then they're seconded from committee in this board.
However-
If anyone wanted to speak about term limits, the committee was available to them. And we've already agreed that we're not going to talk about this for more than 10 minutes. And that's what the council has decided to do. Raul, you were next, I think.
Well, I support this. I think that there should be term limits in principle. We have to remember that we are not a corporation. We are not shareholders in a corporation. We are student representatives at a university. And what's the function of a university? To teach people. So we should be promoting that as graduate students. We should be promoting people actually graduating from a university. So I think if your program is supposed to last three years and you're starting your 4th or 5th year, you shouldn't even be able to participate in GPSC. You should just concentrate on finish your degree, your thesis, whatever you have to do, and graduate. That's what we should be promoting. And this is an issue, especially in graduate school, because graduate school facilitates that people stay longer than they should be. It's not an issue that happens in undergrad. So I think that especially we GPSC, we should be promoting people to do what they are supposed to be doing here, getting a degree. That's what we're supposed to be doing, helping people to get a degree, graduate. That's it. GPSC should not be a refuge for people that just want to extend. In a program of 3 years, they want to stay 5, 6 years. We should not allow GPSC to gain a thing as a refugee for people who just wants to continue. So I think that on principle we should have term limits for both executive board and representatives.
Okay, so this got really complicated really quickly, but it was Remington, Ellen, Dustin, Maria, John, Storm. Okay, and then that's probably going to be our 10 minutes, so let's keep that in mind. Remington?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I think from a very superficial standpoint, this seems like a fair thing to be working through. I think with the history that we've currently had and established, I find it to be more of a exclusion than an inclusion, and that is unfortunately why I will not be voting for this First Amendment. From my understanding, we are not full on GPSC. I don't, if that's incorrect, then please let me know. And by doing this, I do think we lose members that we currently have, and therefore we would make ourselves weaker, especially now, before we make ourselves stronger. So that is why I think that this first piece, I'm not gonna look at something. There you go.
Well, I think it's well intentioned to believe that this council is meant to encourage people to graduate. I think sentiments that Raul and others have put forth are actually disenfranchising, and y'all know I hate that word. Are disenfranchising students whose goal is not to graduate or are in programs who might be taking more than 3 years. For instance, I'm just a dual degree student and my program is 4 years. So if I wanted to be on this council for 4 years, this amendment is prohibiting me from doing that. And not only that, but it's prohibiting me from representing kind of a small fraction of students that ought to be represented on this council. I think it's not a well thought out or well executed or well worded idea. I think essentially you have to look at the ramifications and the intent of this council, which at the end of the day is, yes, some of us our goal is to graduate, but some of us our goal is to get jobs in research, is to remain in academia, or is to get multiple graduate degrees and stay at this institution. And I think that this unfairly puts a limit on how much dedicated students can, like, how much if they want to be on this council and they run and they earn a seat on this council, we shouldn't be prohibiting that. I also just want to comment that I was supposed to be on this committee, and Storm, but no one told us that the committee would be voting on the language and setting forth the language for this discussion, and we had work across town. So I just want to make it clear that those of us who are interested in participating in this discussion were not able to attend, and we were not told of the purpose. And so I just think that there should be another amendment on that board up for discussion, which is obviously that it's not retroactive. And because the committee consisted of certain people who didn't agree with that, it's not there.
Dustin, we're now at 3 minutes, so
I'm gonna be here. So I agree with Raul that we should encourage people to graduate, but I think the problem is, one, a PhD program, I'm pretty sure the average PhD program is more than 5 years. 2, if you decide to do an MS and then a PhD, then you lose. If you're on the council for 2 years and then you're on the council for 3 years, you can't finish off your PhD on the council. 3rd, if I decide to complete my PhD and go in to do an MD or a JD, then I also can't be on the council. So,
okay. It was Maria.
So yeah, I wanted to say that we already have, as people mentioned, difficulties finding people to serve on GPSC. We have a lot of people resign. I've lost count, maybe 10, 12. As mentioned, we have invalidated, canceled elections. We already had an impeachment. I mean, this has been, we're continuing to talk about, making people leave, but then how is that going to help us get people involved? So, term limits are very rare in student governments. Do we have any evidence that having term limits would have fewer vacancies? What is our goal? What is our goal with term limits? We already voted on this 2 years ago. It was voted down 11-4. So we're trying to solve a problem that really doesn't exist. We can be sure that this language will definitely create vacancies if we want more vacancies in our council, than if we want fewer people being able to serve their constituents, if we want fewer people who are excited to do all the work. There's so many responsibilities in the governing docs that each rep has to do, and if someone is willing to do all these things and is excited to serve their constituents, then maybe we should let them stay. If we have such a hard time finding people, then why make them leave? That's my question.
John.
So I'll try to be brief. I think the strongest ethical argument for term limits is to allow openings because everyone gets to put this on their resume. We all get some benefit from this. I think the strongest ethical argument is that we want to be careful to not create an institution where we protect ourselves. I think this language would have to be almost retroactive in that you cannot afford a future generation something that you can't protect yourself and not say to the previous generation, oh, well, now we're not going to allow you. You're only going to get 6 terms, but I got 12 by definition. I'm okay with not having that terminology, but I think it actually is ethical to have it be retroactive. But that's another argument. But my biggest thing is that I think the GPSC does a terrible job of promoting GPSC. And so there's a lot of people who have been making the argument that we'll have vacancies, but honestly, I never heard about GPSC until I joined the Med College, which is a very organized institution that wants representation for its people. It is self-run. We have our own deals. We have our own colleges, our own sub-colleges practically. So I think that GPSC, before it can say, in all honesty, that it's going to create vacancies, it needs to do a damn better job of promoting GPSC and getting more people represented. There's like, how many colleges do we have represented here as compared to what we should have represented? How many people more could we include in this? I think that is not an argument against term limits. That's an argument for promoting GPSC, is all I'm saying. So to me personally, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. And,
Me next.
yeah, Storm, and then we're now at our 9 minutes. So Storm.
I'll be really quick. Level set GPSC should be promoting students. Dustin touched on this point, students graduating. I don't see any connection between someone's involvement on GPSC limiting their ability to complete a degree. I'd be interested to hear of some instance where a person being on GPSC meant they couldn't graduate. I don't see the connection there, and I don't see how that relates to term limits. This, as Remington said, I do believe this is an inclusionary measure. We should be promoting inclusion and opportunity for people who want to be involved, have the opportunity to stay involved. I appreciated Dustin's theoretical. If I were to go and get my LLM after I get my JD, I'm pushing up on that limit. If I then decide I want to go get a master's in public health or some sort of other advanced degree, now I'm no longer involved, and all the institutional history, all the institutional knowledge is lost. You have that gap. And lastly, the education process itself, to me, seems to impose a natural term limit, and we have elective processes as well. So I don't see the need for this.
Okay, we're at 10 minutes. I'd like to vote, please.
Move to extend.
Second.
Okay. Jasmine, you were next.
Can we vote on whether to extend? Because I don't think many people want us to keep talking.
We can, yeah. Anyone, Jude, sorry, what?
I honestly don't think that this argument is the use of the council's time to start with, because I think there are other important issues that we should be discussing. Having said that, I want to make some recommendation I made to 10-minute committee. Might not be the popular thing to say, but I'm going to say either way. Been in GPSC for a while, my experience has been that a lot of the people who just would not go, and let's be very clear, this is not about having people leave. This is also about giving other people opportunity. My experience is that people who serve in the executive board control a lot of power in GPSC. They affect this organization positively or negatively, and their actions have significant impact on how we advocate for students. Now, having said that, I think it is absolutely counterproductive to have someone serve in the executive board for more than 3 years. And part of the reason for saying that is when people serve 4 or 5 years, the thing everyone has noticed with, and I'm going to call names, and I'm going to apologize. Okay, not to call names. At least with 3 people in the executive board, what everyone has noticed, the personal conflict, all of that could have easily been avoided if we do not have people who are in the executive board for so long and then get to the point where all they really care about is the $3,000 stipend. That's a problem. If you really care about advocating for students, maybe we should not implement term limit for general counsel. Stay in the council, earn the $180 you earn, and advocate for students. You don't have to be an executive board member, earn $3,000 and advocate for students. There are other things we could do. So honestly, my recommendation at this point is, I heard what some of you said at the last meeting when Katie talked about having different term limits for different colleges. And my recommendation was, let's not put term limits for colleges, let them decide how they want to run their thing. But for the executive board, because we control a lot of power in this organization, I recommend strongly that we implement a term limit going forward, and then it applies retroactively. Because if we don't, What people are trying to do is to find a back way or a back door to stay for another 3 years and possibly change whatever you agree on right now to their favor. And we've seen that, and that's unfair to the grad student that we represent. It's absolutely absurd, and it makes me, I don't want to use some terms that I don't want to use at this point, but quite frankly, as someone who has been in GPS for 8 months or 9 months, and I care about the students I represent, and I care about the person who's going to take over from me, I think it's very, very, very unfair to the next president and to the next vice president if we allow him or her have people in the executive board who are just going to make the job frustrating for him or her to the point that they want to resign and not be able to speak up for students. That's my point.
Okay. I would still like to vote. Alright. Alright.
So I've got a quick clarification. I was up before you.
I've heard from both of all three of these people. I would like to hear from Marquez and Raul.
I think that there needs to be further discussion within the committee, because I think there would be a lot of people that would like to have the things that they need to say within the committee, and then maybe there could be a uniform type of thing that they, as a committee and a group, from the discussions that we're having now at those meetings, that they could present to the general council. And with that being said, I would actually like to table this until that actually happens, because having 3, 4, or 5 different versions to vote on, I'm not about it. I'm really interested about seeing what everybody else here is doing within your own colleges, and we need to stop with the negativity, the endless emails, and we need to start being happy people, because meetings like this just give me high anxiety, and it probably gives everybody anxiety as well, and we need to move forward from this and move on to the things that we're actually doing that's positive, and that's what we need to focus on.
Danielle, got a clarification on that.
Okay.
Danielle, got a clarification on that.
Okay. Clarification on what, Justin? Like,
The committee did discuss the reason for term limits at length. We discussed everything you just said. This is coming with a vast majority of the committee voting in favor of this language.
Okay.
Just so everyone's aware.
So, nevertheless, it's been seconded to be tabled for the subcommittee to re-meet and hear these arguments again. And I'd like a vote on the tabling.
And that's still open, right, for other people who weren't there? Like, I think Lisa Storm and Ellen said they weren't able to make it last time, but maybe now they can make it.
Marion, where there's a motion on the table. Okay, guys.
Sorry, I have a job.
Guys,
Can we be realistic for once? There's no way you will get the people in that committee to agree on the term. That's and let's not waste our time, because I don't want to come to another meeting and have to go through this process. I have more important business that I want to talk about that affects students. And the next meeting is at the end of February. I don't want to get into March and start adjusting our government documents so that we end up running into that issue where in April we're still changing our government documents. That's unfair. If people want to make recommendations to the language right now, you are in this room, I think we can bring that. Otherwise,
Motion on
yeah,
the
I think
Sorry, we have to vote on the motion.
there's a motion on the table. There's a motion to table this, and then we need to vote. So to table this until the subcommittee meets and comes up with better recommendations. That's what I'm hearing from Marquez, is that right? So ayes have it if you want to table. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Wait, let me count.
Okay.
1, 2, wait, don't.
It's
1, 2,
11.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12.
12.
Yes.
See? Okay.
Nays.
Nays.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh God, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
16.
Fails.
So, tabling fails.
All right, can we call the question?
Yeah, somebody has to.
I call the question.
Okay, the question is called. Are we gonna vote? We're gonna vote on this first version.
Yes.
Objection.
Okay, so we're gonna vote on calling the question. Anyone want to call the question on the first amendment? Please raise your hand. Placard.
For it
Yes.
to pass, we need a 3/4 vote, right, because of constitutional amendment?
Nope.
Let's do
We
third.
just need a strict majority. That's all.
No, that's
No,
not.
I think it's.
No,
I think
you discussed this with Storm last time we had a constitutional amendment. It is just a majority. We've been over this.
Pull the record in the bylaws or something?
I can do that.
Yes,
The
it's-
point is, I have to look and see exactly so that we follow it, like I'm gonna do with the other amendment we added today. There's a question has been called, we have to vote on whether we're calling the question. So can we vote on whether we're calling the question on the first amendment? If you would like to vote, please raise your placard.
can I say something?
No, you can't, Raul, I'm sorry. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
We're calling your question on the first motion.
If you want to vote immediately on the first motion, raise your placard.
So that's 15. 15 ayes. Any nays? Okay, so now, awesome. Now we're allowed to vote. We're going to vote on the very first version of this article. If you would like this integrated into the Constitution,
Do you want to count as no?
I did
Elections code.
elections code, please raise your placard.
Press for roll call vote?
Roll call vote. Second.
So, ready? Daniel Casper, James Sheldon,
I can't. do
Jasmine
that.
Sears. I asked if you were ready. Katie Strong.
Daniel,
I
wait.
need, okay, Daniel, Katie,
This is a filibuster.
Yeah, this is a waste of my time.
That's not what
can I write down the names? This guy.
Yeah, everyone, please keep your placards raised so that
Daniel,
Maria can write down.
Daniel, Katie, can someone help? I can't,
Daniel Casper,
okay,
Katie Strong,
okay,
James Sheldon,
okay,
Jasmine Sears,
okay,
Raul Itaral,
okay.
Vishnu Pradeep, Aishwarya Bhardwaj, sorry, that's bad. Adam Mir, Jude Udazor, Jared Brock, Austin Thompson, John Cassandra, Raul, and I cannot remember your last name, I'm sorry. Okay, so how many was that? 13. So that probably doesn't pass. Can I get no nays?
Does that include the vote?
It
Sorry?
does not
I
include
think you had an
Sajan's vote.
absentee,
You had an
right?
absentee vote.
So it'd be
Oh.
14 with the
Sajan.
absentee.
14. Sejan.
Good job.
Thank you. So 14 yeses, can I get no's?
1, 2, 3,
No.
4.
It's roll call
Claudia,
again,
Del-
right?
Claudia
yeah,
Diaz
roll call
Combs.
vote. Okay, sorry. Claudia,
Claudia Diaz Combs, Hannah Putnam,
Hannah,
Remington Stickney, Ellen Stark, Storm Bird, Matt Humphreys, Jennifer Sedler, Dustin Tran, Torbert McNeil, Jim Collins, and then Mohammed Salih.
oh, sorry, me, oh.
Okay, then you can write those down.
Who is Maria Fox saying for? These are blank placards.
I have
Michelle,
Michelle, Michelle, Nina, Eric,
sorry, Michelle and Nina, yeah.
and then Mahar. Mahar Mazar. Okay, so the first one fails. We're now well past the time limit. I put,
That's,
That doesn't
I'm
matter.
not putting extensions. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, but we're not doing that.
what, the first one, what?
The first amendment has failed, and we are past the 20 minutes at which we allocated for this. So
Well, we
I,
have 13 people.
So I call the
yes.
question on the second one.
sorry.
Article,
What did you
can we
say?
call the question on the second wording?
Okay, so someone has asked to call the question on the second version of the amendment, which is the 3 elected terms in
Objection.
executive boards. There's an
Seconded.
objection. So can we vote to call the question on this first one?
You second one. The second one.
Sorry, the second one. Apologize. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 ayes. Any nays on calling this question? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 nays. So we're calling the question again. So,
Point of information.
yes.
This amendment is going to the elections code, right?
Yes,
Which means we only need a simple majority.
yes, we do. That is correct.
Not to vote. Correct.
Maybe. I don't know. We're just calling the question and we're going on. I like, how many did we? Sure, sorry.
My only confusion with this is we've been talking a lot about retroactive, but there's no different language in there, so does this imply retroactive?
There can be a future motion, but it is not part of this motion.
Okay, so this is just as it stands,
Yes.
just up for interpretation
Yes.
at a later date.
Yes.
Okay.
Some people's votes might be affected by whether or not it's retroactive. I move that.
I'm sorry, no.
It's been called to question.
Yep,
The
question's
question's
been
been
called.
called. We're voting on whether or not to integrate this second version into the elections code. Can I get
This is Jude's version, right?
ayes? Yes.
It's a committee's version.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
committee's.
this is, they're both committees versions. Can I get ayes on whether this is integrated into the elections code? So,
Oh,
4,
wait, yeah, motion for roll call vote.
okay.
Second,
Daniel Casper, Jasmine Sears,
okay,
James Sheldon,
okay,
Torbert McNeil,
okay,
Raul Itaral, Vishnu Pradeep, Aishwarya Bhardwaj, Adam Mir, Jude Udazor, Jared Brock, Austin Thompson, Jennifer Sedler, John Costanza, and Raul. Yes. Okay, nays on integrating this into the elections code.
Okay.
So, Claudia Diaz-Combs,
Wait, Claudia, yes.
Hannah Putnam, Remington Stickney, Ellen Stark, Storm Bird, Matt Humphreys, and then Jim Collins, Muhammad Salim, and then Maria, Nina, and Michelle. Sajan voted nay on this, so Sajan, I don't have her last name in front of me. Okay, I have to look exactly how that works. Can you give me the totals for each one, Maria? The first vote was what to what now?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. To 13.
14, 13, and the other one was?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
14 to 11. So I will send out, when I send out a rationale as to whether the Supreme Court is part of it, I will include this one, and now we can move on.
Well, which one?
I don't know which one passes because I have to do the math.
And they don't necessarily.
And they don't necessarily pass. They might have both failed. I don't know.
Well, there's a
Point of
third.
information. Yes. Does one take priority over the other?
They're not mutually exclusive.
They're not mutually, okay.
Okay, so,
But the second one occupies the field.
yeah. So they could both go into effect. Jim?
I move that the first term that will count towards the calculation of term limits is the term that begins in the spring 2017 academic semester after the GPSC general election. In other words, I'm moving that this is not retroactive.
Should we
Second
confirm this
motion.
first before we vote on that?
No.
We've extended it, or we've,
Yeah, we are well outside of our time and we have other shit to do today.
Sorry,
So,
there's a motion and
I
a
move to
second.
table.
Second.
that's fine, I move to table this until a later date as part of discussion.
Can I
No.
just discussion real quick?
I
So-
move to extend discussion.
Okay, now, Dustin, what were you asking?
So Jim said spring 2017, right? This is
Yeah.
election code, so it will take into effect the election cycle.
He's saying that it will be essentially begin after the next election. Is what
Yeah,
he's
so what I'm
talking
trying to say is, and I may have said it very well, is what's year one? It's what comes up, if you win this next election, that's year one.
Okay, so there's a motion that has been seconded. Does anyone want to add what language that says that this takes effect after the 2017 election?
I'm moving to table this discussion.
Objection.
Okay, this is into the Robert's Rules minutia that I don't have time to deal with right now.
Yeah.
There's a motion on the table. Can we vote to add
Yeah,
this language
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion.
to the table?
No, no.
What is your-
No, I thought someone may
Okay,
have
no.
offered an
I
amendment.
just tried to clarify. So adding language saying the counter begins at this next election. That's what's on the table. Helen, sorry.
I second that, and I just want to point out that we should all come to the next meeting having thought about this, because the implications of it, if it does pass, could mean that we might be without several representatives for the remainder of the year, which I don't.
That's not
Okay,
possible.
I am speaking.
Yes,
Okay.
you are.
It is my time to talk.
Sorry, Ellen, but we are rapidly.
I know, I'm done.
Okay, that's what it does not, as far as I can tell, no one can be removed from their office without being impeached, so it won't affect how, the rest of the year, but it will change, it would affect after the next election. Okay, so we have GPSC officer positions. Danielle, do you really want to get into this right now?
Sorry, but there was a motion on the table.
I second.
Oh, sorry. Second motion, so raise ayes if you would like to add, to make this non-retroactive, to start the counter over at one.
I object, we have not had discussion for this motion,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
we are out of time.
Yeah.
We
Can't just force a vote through.
we have
Yeah.
5 minutes, and I'm rapidly running out.
Yeah, I move to table, we need to
I
resolve
second
that
that.
motion.
Well, we need to vote on the previous motion.
No, we do not.
It was a motion that was seconded.
We can table motions that are seconded. Second just means we're allowed to discuss.
No, we just.
Called to question means you have to vote. It was not called to question. It was seconded, that means it's an official motion.
I've already moved to table.
It
So
was
there's a,
called
all right.
question.
There's a motion to table, okay.
We are.
There's a motion table on the, whatever, table.
First there was a call to vote.
No.
You resolved the stack.
I'm sorry. First, you seconded, then there was a call to motion, motion to table, and then you called the question. So, I'm sorry, you're calling the question to table the motion. So unless you want us to vote and then vote yet a fifth time, voting to table this until we can discuss it later, indefinite at the next meeting.
Well, the discussion part.
The discussion.
Yes,
for the
the
next
discussion.
meeting.
And I gotta ask for a roll call vote, guys, because.
I object to a roll call vote.
I'm out.
It's wasting our time. We know this is.
This
gonna get
is a
tabled.
filibuster.
I would rather do that.
We
There's
wanna
4 minutes left, and
Yeah, we have to do a roll call, I'm sorry.
yeah, ready? So, Daniel Casper, James Sheldon, Jasmine Sears, Katie Strong,
I can't. Okay.
Katie, Tobit McNeil, Vishnu Pradeep, Aishwar Parj, I keep making that word. Jude, are you putting during both? Jude Udazor, are you putting Adams up too?
No, you asked me not
Okay.
to.
Jude Udazor, Jared Brock, Austin Thompson, Jennifer Sedler, John Costanza, Hannah Putnam, Claudia Diaz Combs, Lydia Heiss, and Raul. Yes. Okay.
We're tabling.
This has been tabled to the next meeting, where a discussion can happen about it, and we can then vote at that point. Danielle, do you really want to talk about this today? I move to table the rest of the agenda.
No,
Um,
can I give just current events, 2 minutes?
Yes, we actually have Alma's going to speak briefly, and then you can speak too, because we're going to give our small reports. Katie, do you have a report too? Okay, so there are 3 reports that are on the table, so I move to skip the rest of this, go to reports, so that we can.
Second.
Okay, awesome. Alma,
Yes, I'll make it quick. So, for the last 2 weeks, we've been meeting with, people to try to figure out a solution. And we will have an update as soon as we get you one.
sorry, solution to what?
Oh, sorry, for the, certificate issue when you're voting, as well as the online situation. So as soon as we get something that we can bring to you, we will, but just know for the last 2 weeks, we've been meeting with different people that are the ones who we should be meeting with. So as soon as we can get some more information, I will bring it back,
Okay,
hopefully by the next meeting.
so talks are ongoing. Thank you, Alma. Raul.
Okay, quickly, the Recreation Advisory Council met last Wednesday. There's going to be 2 events in February. There's going to be Pink on the Mall, February 16, sponsored by Victoria's Secret. And there's going to be Consider Yourself Challenge fundraiser at the Rec Center on February 18. They claim that they are within budget, so the information that I had was that they are not expected to increase fees or increase prices for the programs. And they talk us about the programs that they have. So I wanted to talk about fitness for you. You can request the rec center to have a.
Can you send this out as an email?
Yeah.
It's
You can request a
Okay.
rec center to have a class for your roof. It
Okay.
costs $50 there. So that's
awesome. Thank you, Raul. Katie.
I'm the UA Online rep. We just transitioned this past year from the Outreach College into UA Online. There's been major issues with getting communication centralized, so my role has been to try to work on that. I've been working with the Office of Student Affairs, and right now they are considering and would like any feedback, which you guys don't need to give me here, but if you guys want to just send me emails, feedback, what they're considering doing. D2L is the online platform for any online classes at this point, and for all of you, pretty much everyone in here has but everybody else has representatives within their colleges that are also doing online or doing hybrid programs. There are some that's not the case. But what we are asking is that students who have online representation would be able to go to D2L, and under a separate class would be a GPSC forum where online students could discuss, have our own discussion, have our own communication portal, have GPSC announcements, student affairs announcements, announcements that affect all online students, because as of, I believe, the 2018 school year, over 20% of the student body will be represented as online students. So, hoping that will happen, but I'd love anybody's feedback on that.
Are those going to be self-enrolling D2L classes?
It will be everyone will be enrolled if you are enrolled
Automatic?
online.
Is it automatic?
It is an automatic
Okay.
enrollment. It is, you do not have to read the announcements, you do not have to
Brittany?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's awesome, half my cohort, online, so
Yeah.
that would be very, very cool.
Okay, awesome. Can I get an adjourn motion?
Motion to
Alright, adjourned. 8 o'clock.